Hi everyone, my name's Lucy. If we've not met before, I am known as Instagram Champagne Nerd on Instagram, and I'm really excited to have the wonderful Etienne Calsac here today, coming live from his wonderful cuvée in Avis. Hi Etienne, how are you?
Hello, I'm good.
So this is your domain and your house that you've created yourself, and it's a really interesting time in Champagne because of this whole coronavirus situation. Tell us about how you're going as a house and how you're managing the vineyards in this interesting time.
Well, we are lucky because we can work, so we don't have to stay at home all day long. So we're lucky to be able to get outside for the vineyard work because nature cannot wait, and we have to go work.
Mm-hmm.
And also we are lucky because since everything started, it's been sunny every day, so no rain. So it was good to be outside and be able to work with some sun or at least no rain.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the busiest time of year in the vineyard, but we're like finishing pruning, working our soils, like doing lots of plowing. So we keep ourselves busy.
Fantastic. And you've got about 3 hectares of your own and another hectare from your family vineyards that you manage. How is it in the vineyards with the winemakers? I believe they have to have distances in between every worker. You have to have permission slips to go out. There's one person per car, I think.
Yeah, exactly. We have to. Yeah, we are allowed to work, but we are allowed to work only if we respect some rules. And for example, I've got 3 employees,
Mm-hmm.
and we avoid to be together at the same time. So every employee has to go to work to the vineyard with his own car,
Mm-hmm.
or if somebody comes to the winery, he has to sanitize the handles or wear gloves. We can't label 2 people at the same time when we're doing labeling, so we just it's only one person. But there is not much labeling to do, I have to say, this week. So yeah, we respect rules. And in the vineyards, if there are 3 people on the same plot, they have to be at least 2 meters away from each other,
Okay.
which is quite easy.
Yes.
My
Yes.
plots are big.
3 or 4 hectares, I'm sure you can space them out a little bit. So tell us a little bit about you and how you got started in Champagne. I believe you created Champagne Etienne Calsac in 2010.
Yeah.
And you've been going from strength to strength since then. So tell us about that.
I started, first I went to the winemaking school when I was from the age of 15 to 20. And then I started my own domain in 2010. I took over family lands, my grandparents' lands, and they were just selling grapes to big houses. So my project was to make wine, because I think it's very boring just to sell grapes, and I really love wine. So I really wanted to do that. So, but 10 years ago, I started to make wine. I started this project. I built this winery, and step by step. At first, I was making only some bottles, but then I was selling grapes. But now I buy grapes to my family. So step by step, I was making more bottles every year.
And so you produce today about 30,000 bottles, if I'm correct?
Yeah.
And mostly from the beautiful terroir of Avis.
Avis, but not only. I would say I've got more Chardonnay identity from different terroirs. I've got land in Côte des Blancs, and also I've got half of my vineyard is based in Bisseuil. It's one big plot called Les Rocheforts, which is not very far from Avis, but it's different terroir. Very, very chalky as well, but different type of soil. and exposure.
Excellent. And you can definitely see that in your wines.
Yeah, it's part of the style.
Yeah.
And I've
Fantastic.
got a tiny plot of Pinot Noir in Aube.
In the Aube, yes. And tell us about, so being one of the young guns of Champagne, it seems to me that there are a lot of young, dynamic people like yourselves who have taken over their parents' domain, taken over the family land, and decided that they wanted to keep the grapes from themselves. Obviously, being in such an amazing place and looking after the vineyards like you do yourself, you would want to keep those beautiful grapes for your own champagne. So you've been doing some really interesting things and quite vin identitaire, I guess, in a way we would say, so identity-driven wines. And one of the things that I find really fascinating about your wines is the cépage d'antan and the new, the old varietals that you've planted, I think in Côte de Sézanne, to make a quite distinct cuvée. Tell us about that.
Well, it was 15 years ago. I was at the tasting. It was a blind tasting, and we had Petit Méliès and Arban during this tasting, and I thought it was really interesting to taste this champagne. And about 10 years ago, I decided to plant these grapes varieties in Côte de Sézanne, where the climate is a little bit warmer. So the grape varieties, they grow pretty well there. So I planted those grape varieties in 2010, and I had to wait 2016 to be able to make the first vintage.
Okay. How does that normally happen? Because if you plant vines in Champagne, the Comité Champagne says you have to wait at least 3 years before you can harvest and make grapes. You waited 6. Tell us about that.
Because the vines were too young and they were not producing enough, and I had to wait a little bit longer to get a good quality.
And is that because of the depth of the roots?
Yeah. I mean, it's got to do with that. It's also because the vines are small, so you don't get enough fruits. So what's the point in making, something? I had to have enough grapes to make champagne.
Yeah. Okay. And so Les Rochefort, tiny quantity. I think you have a bottle perhaps with you, but we're unable to get any in Singapore and Australia because it sells out.
Les Revenants, you mean?
Les Revenants, the cépage d'antan. It's been quite an interesting thing in Champagne. It seems that quite a few people are now experimenting with those grapes. Are we seeing an increase from them?
Yeah. In nurseries, they are running out of this type of grape varieties. But even if there are more and more winemakers planting those grape varieties, this remains very, very small. It's less than 1% of the total superficie of Champagne.
So less than 100 hectares, I think, for the 4 varieties.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's even less than 1%.
Yeah.
But because now there are more and more people planting, so maybe now it's 200 big majority of Pinot Blanc.
Yeah. Is there higher resistance to warmer climates, and is there a relation there between those varietals and global warming?
I think they can be grape varieties of the future. I'm thinking of Petit Méliès mostly. Okay. I'm not sure about Pinot Blanc. I'm not sure about Arban, but Petit Méliès is very interesting because with global warming, we're losing acidity in our wines. It's changing, but what is really interesting is with Petit Méliès, you get high potential alcohol, and you get high acidity. So you get a balance that is really, really interesting. And I think this could be a grape variety we are going to work more in the future. I don't know, but so far, from what I have noticed on warm vintages, these grapes always keep acidity. Okay. And you get lots of flavor, fruit. That's very interesting.
And so good aging potential as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of course.
excellent. Excellent.
But
So,
you just need to take time to analyze
mm,
what's going on with these grapes on a
yeah,
long period.
great. And one of the great things, and I think a lot of people are doing what you're doing and following the organic initiatives. You're converting to organic viticulture. So you're not certified yet, but you're in the
No,
process of
yeah, yeah,
converting.
yeah. It's
How
my
complicated
third
is
year.
that?
Sorry.
How complicated is that?
It's not very complicated. It's actually very simple. It's just you don't use herbicides and you only allowed to use sulfur and copper.
Mm.
So the rules are very simple.
Mm-hmm.
But I have always worked. I have always worked in that direction. So for me, it was not like changing everything from A to Z. It was
Mm-hmm.
I have always been close to that. So it's more about something personal. Just I want to validate what I'm doing in my vineyard by doing this conversion. But that's just only my vineyard, not my family vineyard. So my wines will not be organic in the first time. Maybe they will be in the future. But it was not a commercial need, but it was more about philosophy.
And so in the same sphere, do you use any biodynamic principles, and what's your thoughts on biodynamics?
Well, I am the kind of person who needs to be convinced.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want to do biodynamic just because it's cool to do biodynamic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
However, I started this year on the plot, Les Rochefort. Half of the plot is run by biodynamic.
Okay.
So because I really want to, I need to compare. I need to see. I need to make my own opinion. So
Mm.
we have started biodynamics, but I want to be convinced.
Mm. So what are the different processes then for those two sides of Les Rochefort? Do you harvest with the moon? Do you plant
We have started
cow
this year,
horns?
but we, of course, when we replant vines, we we do it on the right period with the moon when we
Mm-hmm.
when we plant baby vines. We follow all the biodynamic principles.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the name of the plants in English, but we use plants and
Mm-hmm. Yep.
biodynamizer and all
Herbal
of that. So
teas. Yep.
we do it properly, so I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I really want to. It will take several years before you get the result, I guess. But that's the best way to make your own opinion about that.
Mm. Well, we look forward to seeing it. Will you release the two Rochefort separately, the biodynamic one and the
I don't think so. I don't think so. It should be two separated tanks and or
yeah
barrels, and then I'll see if it brings something. If
yeah.
I get if the I don't know if the wine change, if it's deeper. I don't know.
Hmm. Interesting.
It's a long time process, I
Yeah.
guess.
So behind you, we can see your cuvery, and I can see some cuve, and I can see I think some barrels on the right.
Yeah.
This is the cuvery that you built yourself,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. This one is actually is from last year.
mm-hmm.
I've got the old one is on my left. So yeah, I built a first building there in 2011, and this one is from last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I use stainless steel and oak. I would say that with time, more and more I use oak.
Mm-hmm.
I really like working with barrels, and I've got some stainless steel as well. So it's about 1/3 oak, 2/3 stainless steel, but I would like to be half in the next 2 years, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. So stainless steel, keeping that freshness, having a reductive style, so not letting the oxygen affect the wine while it's fermenting, versus barrel aging, which it seems to have two different uses. So seems to be to give it a little bit of oxidization, so opening up the wine, having some oxygen contact with it, which from my understanding means that you need less sulfur afterwards, but also to give those aromas from the barrels. So tell us why you use barrels and why do you find it interesting?
For me, it's more about you get more complexity with barrels. It's like you can have exactly the same wine, exactly the same batch and you can pour it in 5 different barrels and you will have 5 different wines. And this is what I like with barrels, because you get more. I mean, more different wine is great for your creativity as a winemaker. This is why I love to work with barrels, and I mostly work with big barrels, 300 to 600 liter barrels. That for me, I'm not too oaky, and I use a lot of used oak as well. So it's you get a fine style of oak from different coopers as well, because each cooper has different style. So depending on what type of barrel you buy, you will get different flavors.
I once went into a blind tasting with someone in Melbourne who put their nose into a glass of Pinot and went, that is interesting that you're using Francois Frère barrels. And some of them seem to be so distinctive that people can pick up who's made the barrel from the first nose. Exactly. It's fascinating. Where do you source your barrels from?
I buy them used mostly in Champagne from other winemakers, and I buy the really big ones in Provence.
Okay, excellent.
Pretty hard to find.
Yes.
It's a good
so
one.
I believe today you have some vin clair, so some still wines that have gone through that first fermentation. Are you going to tell us a little bit about them and tell us a little bit about the 2019 vintage?
Yeah, it was, I've got some vin clair here. – 2019 was a very warm vintage. We were harvested in end of August, which become quite usual now with global warming. I have to say, it's not that rare anymore. And what I do when I make the wine is I try to isolate plot by plot as much as I can to get all the diversity of my vineyard. The first wine we can try is the village of Grove. Grove is Premier Cru Côte des Blancs wine. It's other side of the hill of Aviz, so you get a different exposure, and the soil is different. So I would say the soil is made of clay and chalk. So the clay brings some roughness, and the chalk minerality. So here you get in Grove, you always get wines that are very fresh, energetic, easy, floral. Always easy. So this village goes into Le Chapet-Belle, the entry-level champagne that we will have later. It goes in it because for me it's a Chardonnay that is very pleasant, ready to drink. So this part goes into Le Chapet-Belle.
So what are you looking for when you taste your vin clair? So you have harvested in September, end of August last year?
End of August, September, both.
And so you then put this into stainless steel, press into stainless steel?
Stainless steel and barrel.
And barrel.
I do like half. No.
And so stainless steel, that would be what, for a month, a few weeks?
No, I leave it in stainless steel for it ferments. I press the juice, then I ferment the juice in oak and in stainless steel. Okay, so
So two separate. Okay. Yep.
yeah, two separate fermentations, and it's still aging behind me. And I use a white yeast, so it's spontaneous fermentation, and that's all basically.
Okay. Interesting. And so what are you looking for in versus, and this was a very interesting question that we had, when you harvest and first press the juices versus now in the fermentation, what are the key elements that mean that it will be a good wine? It will be good.
It's very hard to taste the must. It's very hard to the must. First of all, you have to taste the berries when you harvest. You taste the berries. You look at the seeds. If the seeds are kind of brown, it's a good sign for me. It means it's ripe. When you taste the juice, it's very hard to imagine what the taste will be as a champagne. But of course, I would say the element that you can get when it's juice, you get acidity and you get sugar. So this you can have a perception of what it is, of what the wine will be.
Okay. So what you are tasting now, 2019 harvest, will be bottled sometime in the next few months, and then we'll go into the cellars for 3 years.
Yeah, 2 years. Depend on the cuvée. Can be from two to 3.5 years.
Yeah. So we won't be able to taste this until 2023.
Yes.
Yeah. By the time it gets to Singapore or Australia or wherever it is our listeners are.
2022 for the youngest one, 2023 for the rest.
Preview.
But yeah, I haven't bottled yet. My bottling was cancelled because of the virus. Because it's too many people working around the machine, and it's we couldn't do it. So I will bottle hopefully next month, end of May.
Fingers crossed.
Everything so it's still aging, but it's okay. Yeah. I mean, wines are okay. It's not a big problem.
And that's kind of a good thing for the wine, though, isn't it? To give it a little bit even more complexity. Yeah.
It's quite true. Yeah, it's they're opening up. They will be ready soon. Ready sooner. I mean, when it will be when they will age in the bottle. So it's not a bad thing.
So people will know that when the 2019 base wines come out, there'll be good ones to pick up.
Yeah, I think the wines will be ready quite soon because it's again it's a warm vintage, low acidity but very good fruit. Nice.
Excellent. And
I can't complain.
So you've had the vin clair from Grove.
Yes.
And you have a couple of other vin clair as well.
Vin clair from Bisseuil, Les Rochefort. So I'm making a single vineyard in Les Rochefort. So that's this plot is in Grande Vallée de la Marne. I don't like this term because people always get confused with Vallée de la Marne, but it's not Vallée de la Marne. It's more like the south of the Montagne de Reims, near the Marne River. Okay. So I've got a plot that is very chalky there. Okay, there is a top layer that is very thin of soil, and then I get chalk. So you get lots of minerality in this wine. It's very lots of fineness, and it's southeast exposure, low yield. So the berries are always very concentrated and rich, and you get a really nice acidity behind. So it's 1/3 to half oak, and then stainless steel.
Interesting. Shall we open up our wines? Yes?
Yes.
So I have a question for you, Etienne. I bought 2 glasses.
Yes.
One is a classic tulip flute, and the other one is a Riedel white wine, aromatic white. Which one do you recommend?
the one on my left, for sure. This.
The bigger one.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
I mean, flutes for champagnes are just are not good glasses.
Yes. Definitely the skinny flute we can all throw out. Yeah. So we have people who are
Zalto white. It's very good white, very good glass.
We have someone who's complimenting you on your English, saying that your English is excellent. Did you train and learn overseas? And have you applied any of your learning overseas to the world of wine, to the new world of wine? Sorry.
Yeah, this is where I mostly learned because my English is not very good. But thank you. After my winemaking school, I went to the US for an internship in California, and I also went to Canada, to New Zealand, and this helps. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah. So, Les Chapeaux Belles, this is your I guess your flagship. This is your the first one that people would taste from your portfolio.
Absolutely, yeah.
The bottle that I have here is the 2016 base, and it says here on the back 30% Solera. So tell us about the wine and tell us about perhaps the Solera that is behind you.
So this one is the entry level wine. It's as you say, the flagship. It's a Blanc de Blanc. The Chapeau Belle means the Great Escape. Okay, if I had to translate the Great Escape, because it's 100% Chardonnay, but I want this Chardonnay to be accessible. How would you say that?
Accessible.
Accessible, easy to drink.
Approachable, accessible.
That makes you drink more. You see, you have a glass, and then maybe you want to have another glass after that. But so Blanc de Blanc, there is always a notion of acidity in Blanc de Blanc. That is important. But I want this Blanc de Blanc to be not too acidic and ready soon. So this is why also I use reserve wine. I use about 30% reserve wine. Depends on the years, 20 to 30% reserve wines. Of Chardonnay, of course, to bring complexity to this wine. But I really want this wine to be like easy drinking Chardonnay Blanc de Blanc.
And so the Solera goes back to 2010 or?
2011, when I started the winery. Yeah.
And so you've added Chardonnay from every vintage since 2011 into a barrel.
Absolutely.
From Avis, Grove.
Avis, Grove, and Bissoy. All my 3 terroirs. But the Solera is mostly Grove because Grove is always more acidic, and acidity keeps freshness in the wine. So this is why I like to keep Grove as a reserve wine.
So speaking of acidity, full malolactic fermentation, you don't block it?
No, my philosophy is to do the malolactic fermentation as much as I can. Then if I have barrels that don't want to do it, then I don't do it. I block it, but most of the time the malo is done.
Yeah.
Because it makes the wine a little bit softer, and especially for Chardonnay, this is what I prefer.
Beautiful. And so 2 to 3 years in the cellars, and then dosage of 4 grams for me.
Yeah, depends what base you have, but you have a base 16, which is 4 grams. I'm having the new base, which is 3 grams, but I always like extra brut dosage.
So all of your cuvées are extra brut.
Yeah, because it doesn't hide the wine behind. And it's very important to understand that champagne is a wine. It's a wine first. It sparkles. It's nice to party with, but it's wine.
And tell us about dosage and its relation to aging wines. They say that wines with a little bit of sugar generally age better than Brut Nature. What do you
Yeah,
think?
sugar helps. You know, you know those bottles of champagne they found in the sea that
Mm-hmm.
that were like 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
They were very sweet, and this helps to keep the freshness of the wine. But that was another time. So
100 grams
I
dosage,
mean, I don't,
sometimes plus.
but I don't think because the amount of sugar is very small. The amount of sugar I use is very small. I don't think this will, I mean, help aging really. I think
Mm-hmm.
acidity helps aging more.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. So how do you describe, if you were to describe this wine in a few words, what words would you?
Um, it's I start on my base to get some brioche aromas, you know, from what I get. Um, toasted, toasted, toasted.
That's it, and that's barrel influence or the lease influence or both. Yeah. So we've gone from a blend of 3 or 4 different terroirs,
Yeah, exactly.
and
Grove,
now we're going to
Bissau,
have a look at Bissau.
yeah, yeah, and now it's Bissau.
So single vineyard champagnes seem to be more and more interesting to the customer and more interesting to the people of Champagne. I see a lot of people moving from blending Champagne as a region, so taking grapes from all over the region and going actually to create mono parcelle or mono cru. And you have a few, if I'm not mistaken, the most well-known being the Clos des Maladries, which a clos, I'm sure you all know, is a vineyard with a wall around. There are only 32 clos that are certified in Champagne. If you do have an opportunity to get a hold of the Clos des Maladries, please do. I think you've done 3 vintages, 13.
I've done more, but 3 that are released. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is, it's not the Clos des Maladries, but it's the single vineyard from Les Rochefort, Viseu. So was that part of your strategy and part of your idea when you started in 2010 to make single vineyard or small different plots?
Yeah, I always wanted. I have always wanted. I have never tried to be a house, like to be a big champagne house and blending everything together and having a brand. I was more about what I wanted to do is I wanted to discover my terroir because my family was not making wine before, so I had to isolate every terroir, make wine with it, and then make my own opinion on what I was making. And the first 2 years, I used to blend Les Rochefort with another plot, and I was making a cuvée called Infiniment Blanc that I don't make anymore. And because after 3 years, I realized that Les Rochefort was good by itself, so I kept it separately. And I think this wine has a strong identity because there are very few winemakers that own lands in Bissau, this village, and the top layer is very thin, lots of white chalk underneath, and so you get a full-bodied champagne with a high saltiness, salinity. Okay, so you get a very interesting balance. And you see when you try the wine, when you taste it, you have more length. It's it's a little bit drier, but I would say this is more gastronomic champagne. L'Échappée Belle, the first one we had, Of course, you can have it with food, but I would say it's more a pre-dinner drink wine, a wine that you want to share with friends, um, in casual in a way, but complex. Le Rochefort is more gastronomic wine, because it's more complexity, more length.
So you say it is drier than Le Chapibel. These two that I have are the same base vintage and similar dosage. The dryness, is that you think from the acidity that's balancing out, or how does that?
From the choke. I mean, it's like imagine you like licking a piece of choke. It dries your mouth really. So you get this minerality from the terroir.
And so here, 100% Chardonnay, a little bit of oak, complete Merlot, and so 30% in barrel.
Yes.
This is 30%. Is this the Solera as well?
It's yeah, you're right.
Solera?
The particularity of Le Rochefort has, even if it's a single plot, it has its own Solera system. So I've got wines that are dating back from 2012 until the last vintage in a tank that I blend with the wine of the year. It's very interesting because most of the time single vineyards are also single years, vintages. But here the plot is really big, so I can keep every year reserve wines from the same plot. So when you have the wine, when you have it, it's like you have the taste of the plot through the years. It's not only one vintage. So you keep the style of the plot.
That's really interesting. Wow. It's really, really beautiful. Yeah, absolutely amazing minerality. So what did you say you would pair this with?
This goes very well with seafood. You know, I work with a restaurant that is doing only oysters. I think it's a really nice match. I mean, I love cheese, and I think this goes very well with a plate of cheese, really.
Yeah. Beautiful. So we've got two wines, 2016 base I have with both have 30% Solera. I'm just answering Yuri's question. It's pretty extraordinary to have a single vineyard that also has a single vineyard Solera. So thank you for making that for us.
Yes, because the plot is big, and in Champagne, most of the plots are really, really tiny, and it's pretty tough to keep reserve wine from the same plots. For example, Clos des Manadries is very small, and I can't keep reserve wine from the same plot.
Yeah.
Because it's too small. But here I can.
So how many hectares of Le Rochefort, and how many bottles do you produce?
It's 1.5 hectares, and I 4,000 bottles.
Okay.
4,000 to 5,000 bottles, and the rest goes into Le Chapibel, the entry level one.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, 4,000 is tiny. So we're very lucky to have a bottle or two. We were talking earlier about the interesting change in négociant manipulant and récoltant manipulant. So
yes.
I'm sure all of our attendees know récoltant manipulant means you recolt the grapes and you make the wines, meaning that you own all of the vineyards that you get the grapes from. And négociant manipulant means you negotiate, so you bring in some of the grapes from other vineyards. Now, you not so long ago, although pretty much all of the grapes that you have are from your vineyards or your mother's vineyard, have become an NM, and a lot of producers are doing that. Can you think of De Souza, Fleury, Pierre Paillard, etc.? Can you tell us a little bit about why people are moving towards NM?
Yes, I think now it has no. I mean, the price of the land here in Champagne is very expensive, and it has become unaffordable. Maybe with the crisis, it will become less affordable. Who knows? But So the only way for small growers to expand is to buy grapes, and sometimes it can be like family grapes. It's my case. I buy grapes to my mother. This is why I had to change into a NM, so I can buy grapes from my mother. But I've got brothers and sisters also, so it's always complicated. So it's more about like having two different companies. But it's not. I mean, now you realize that it's not because it's your land that you own it that the wine has to be good. I mean, there are good wines, good grapes everywhere, and for me, it's not a problem to buy grapes. I mean, small growers, the only way to expand is to buy grapes. Lands are too expensive, so what's the other option? It's nothing else you can do.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
when you see an M on the bottle, that doesn't. Back in the days, people used to think, "Oh, this is an M. This is Grande Maison. This is." There is no identity behind. But I think now things have changed, and many small vignerons are becoming an M for family reasons because people now divide lands. Back in the days, it was easy to rent lands. That is not the case anymore.
To
So
rent land,
yeah,
people
to
would,
rent.
okay,
Yeah,
with like
imagine you
a contrat d'approvisionnement, like a contract
no,
for.
you just imagine you're just a land owner in Champagne. You see you have a half an hectare in Champagne, and you need a professional to grow it, so
Mm-hmm.
you rent it to somebody. RM doesn't mean you own the land. So that just mean you grow your own lands.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time, lands belong to brothers, sisters, or somebody from outside the family.
Yeah. Okay.
So for me, it's not no the RMNM now it's obsolete
Yeah. Yeah.
debate.
Doesn't matter anymore. Makes sense.
No,
Makes
no,
sense.
it used to maybe 30 years or 20 years ago, but not anymore.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Now we have a few questions from our attendees. So we have one question which was also asked in some of the emails is, what is your favorite part of making champagne? Is that managing the vineyards, or is it blending, or is it, I don't know, disgorgement, or what do you enjoy about making wine, and what is your least favorite part?
I would say that I'm very excited when it's harvest time. For me, it's like Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very stressed. I'm not a very nice person during harvest time, but I really like this period. Something I really like because it's like the junction between grapes and winemaking. So you get both. So this is my favorite time of year. And I would say that the worst part of my job is to fill up custom papers. I feel
Yes. Yeah, admin is
like
never fun.
it takes us like so much time and energy, and that's terrible.
Yeah.
Um, but it's what we're doing I mean, it's a great. We're lucky. I mean, I love my job. It's fantastic to make wine.
Mm.
Every step is interesting, and if you want to do something good, you cannot miss a step.
So speaking of harvests, how many people come in to harvest, and what do you think about the 2020 harvest? Hopefully all the borders will be lifted, so we'll be able to have an influx of new people come in and help, because I think a lot of the harvesters come in from outside of France.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know what, but to give you numbers, there are 120,000 people coming in Champagne for harvest.
yeah,
So
it's
it's like a
massive.
whole
It's
city. Yeah.
enormous. Yeah.
I don't know the proportion, but maybe half of these people are coming from Eastern Europe countries, probably.
Yeah.
So with the virus and the social distancing, this is going to be quite complicated. So I guess the authorities are talking about it now, and so I don't know. I don't know what has been decided nothing has been decided yet,
Mm.
but it just depends on the virus. But this is going to be a big problem if we because we need to harvest, but and we have no machine. Machine in Champagne is
Yes.
not
It's
allowed.
all hand harvested. Yeah.
Whole hand harvested. So this is why we hired so many people, and that's quite stressful. We I don't know, just depends, but it's gonna be. But we need people for sure. And personally, I don't want to see a machine in my vineyard. It's just
Yeah.
something we
Well,
don't want to see in Champagne.
it
We're
would
making
destroy all of the hard work that you've put into, treating your vineyard so well for
the
years.
work we do, our philosophy, because we like human beings. I prefer human beings than machines. And it's not something we want to see in Champagne. We're in Champagne. We make quality products by hand. It's handcrafted. So I think having the machine here in Champagne would be a terrible mistake, in my opinion.
Yeah. So we have one question, which is, what is your favorite champagne apart from your own?
Very hard question. It's like, what's your favorite kid? You have two kids. It's very hard to answer. I would say I prefer grower champagnes because it's my style, my palate. Even if I respect every type of style, but I think hard to mention names, but I think I like Meunier when it's very well made and dry and fresh, and I really like this type of champagne.
And one of the questions is, how do you differentiate them? How would you describe your perfect Meunier champagne?
How to Meunier champagne? Well, we've very low dosage, very light oak, nice oxidation, not too much, and fresh. Just something that makes you drink more.
Yeah.
Not Venus. No, the opposite. Yeah.
Someone is asking, which one is your favorite child? I think you have lots of favorite children.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a difficult. There are so many different champagnes. I think in the Champagne region there are close to 5,000 different grower champagnes. So I think my answer to that question is always a champagne that I've not tasted before, because there are so many to taste that,
It's 5,000 and half of them are in cooperative. So it's wines made by COP. So it's only 2,000. And I think now it's even less. 2,000 people making their own wine. And so many different styles, very traditional to very modern. So
lots of champagne to try. Too little time. I guess we're lucky to be confined and to be safe and healthy, so we might as well make the most of it. And we've been really fortunate to be able to catch up with you, Etienne. It's been a pleasure. I hope it's been interesting for everyone. And it's certainly been very interesting for me. I will share the recording of this video for everyone online, so they can go back to questions and bits and pieces. But obviously, if you have any questions, you can contact me or contact Etienne. Your Instagram handle is Champagne Etienne Calsac. Yep. And you're quite active on Instagram, which is great. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate. Etienne, is there anything you would like to add before we say goodbye and finish up our champagnes?
Well, I would just wish good luck to everyone. Just be safe, stay at home, drink a lot. It's a good medicine. And
yes.
No, so I can say just take care, and hopefully this won't last for a long time.
Fingers crossed. And we'll come and visit as soon as we're allowed to. We'll come and visit the Cuverie and Avis, and hopefully come and see the beautiful Clos des Maladries and Les Rochefort. And yeah, come and visit.
With a great pleasure.
Thank you. As one of our attendees has said, stay safe and stay drunk. Enjoy your champagnes, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.